Further debate. I recognize the member from Humber River, Black Creek.
Wow, Speaker. I listened intently to the minister speaking for an hour, and I noticed three things. The first thing that I noticed was he drank about a couple gallons of water. And I asked myself what was going on there, and I understand that it was hard to swallow the things he was saying. So he had to keep drinking water and water and water. He talked about shovels. Truth hurts, you know. He talked about shovels. And there was shoveling. About an hour of solid shoveling. And the third thing that I noticed, and it was a question I asked myself, was what does this minister have against the drivers of Ontario? What does he have against truckers? Really, what does he have against safety for driving in the north? Almost 6 years of a Conservative government, and I ask my members, are the roads in the north any safer? No. I ask the members that. How about, is this government willing to take on insurance companies, gouging us? During the pandemic, gouging us, making record profits. Is this government willing to take them to task? No, of course not. Where do you think they get their money from, right? And third of all, was this minister even willing to talk about a bill to remove gridlock off of the 401? No, absolutely not. Not for truckers. Truckers who go out there in the middle of the morning, driving all night, bringing our goods from here to there, making the economy going. Let's get them off the 401 and put them on the 407 for free. Did he want to talk about that? Did he spend 10 minutes talking about that? 5 minutes? A minute? 1 second? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because it's embarrassing. Because when they're going to call the Minister of Transportation and say, hey, we heard this great idea from the NDP, are you going to get behind it? You had an hour to talk about it. And listen to that. Look at that. His conscience is coming out, and it's a battle with his conscience, and he's frustrated because he's got to take his conscience, he's got to shove it right down, you know? That's what he's got to do. And that's, bring him water. Yeah, if a page could bring him more water. Now, the thing is, he's so frustrated.
Order.
He's so frustrated. All right, so I want to take you back in time. I think we all know where they stand. They don't like drivers. They're not willing to help truckers. And they're not willing to even talk about this great motion today. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the 407. Now, they don't want to talk about the 407. One of the greatest embarrassments of a Conservative government anywhere on this planet. Highway 407. In the 50s, imagine, Conservative government of the 50s was looking at the 401, hearing about how the 401 at the time, we're talking decades ago, generations ago, was already becoming congested back then. And so there was a conversation at the time, let's ease the congestion, let's build another highway north of it. And so that government didn't get it done. This government always gets it undone, of course. But they didn't get it done. The next decade, Conservatives didn't get it done. They didn't get it done after that. And it was a government in the 90s, an NDP government, that actually got highway building done. A visionary project. And imagine what they built. It was for its time, absolutely forward-thinking.
Order.
Unlike Conservative governments like this one that's always having to think back and walk back things that they do. This NDP government came out with a highway poured with concrete. In fact, the ways on and off the highway at the time was visionary. They had technological systems put in place where you had transponders, you had cameras getting your license plates. Imagine, no toll booths. And it was so forward-thinking financially, it would pay for itself. And so, not long after, shovels got in the ground, not like the shoveling he's done for the last hour. Get him some water. And what happened at the time?
The member from Chatham-Kent-Leamington has a point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I've yet to actually hear the charismatic speaker from across the aisle order anything through the chair. He's yet to address the Speaker through his narrative. and he's straying a great distance from actually the content of the debate.
Thank you. A reminder that all comments must be made through the chair. The member may resume.
Thank you, Speaker. So, they're mad, they're angry, right? You can't blame them, they're angry, right? I mean, you know, they hate truth, you know, when you, it's like shining light on a vampire. They hate it, they recoil, right? They can't stand it. So the thing is, and they want to hear it either, right? Get the minister some more water, please. So what happened was that after that, we had a Conservative government come in with a lack of sense revolution. And the lack of sense revolution came in, and oh my gosh, what did they do? Right there, Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons was sitting there at their cabinet making calls. Literally, you could find the biggest neocons in the world would be sitting there giving them the play-by-play, what to do. I mean, imagine this, that government of the time, it was like religion, it was dogma, privatization. Did you know that they actually appointed a minister of privatization? Imagine. And this guy, that same minister, when he was in charge of correctional services, tried to privatize all the jails. Imagine that. So, one of the first things that they privatized, and I've got articles all over here calling the 407 deal the worst deal in history. It is an absolute shame. I want to hear the minister apologize for that deal. Seriously. Go back in time. Come out here and apologize for it. So the thing is, they sold it at fire sale costs. They got up there and they sold, now get this, they sold it for $3 billion. But this is the clincher. So they tied a generation to gridlock on the 401, okay? And you know what they sold the next 70 years for? Anyone got a number? No. $100 million. They condemned 4 generations of drivers on the 401 and the 407 to eventually paying the highest toll rates in the known universe. That's what they did. And he doesn't want to talk about it, of course. Why would any conservative want to talk about the biggest embarrassment of their time, right? And so that's what happened. And so it got sold. And you know what they did with part of the money? I need water to think about this. They paid every voter $200 in Ontario in that election out of the money to try to get reelected. You can't make this up. You can't make this up, really, you can't. So, Speaker, they did this, and then what happens after that? Within a couple years, one of the private interests, and it was international interests, buying up this incredible state-of-the-art, forward-thinking highway that would pay for itself. They bought it up, and the valuation went double, triple, 4 times its amount within a couple of years, showing the absolutely horrible business sense of the Premier at the time. But even worse, imagine when critics were saying, oh my God, the rates are going to go right up through the roof on this highway. Imagine the minister, the Conservative minister, trust them on money, of course. No, the rates would go down by 30%, they said, on this highway by privatizing, because it's religion. It's religion for them. And you know what happened in that time window? They said it would go down by 30%. Imagine, rates went up by 300%. 300%! It's unbelievable. So that's where we were at. Now, years go on, and let's talk about the 407. What did the 407 ETR do during that period of time? Lawsuits. You know, people would come and complain, and you hear the stories in the media about people saying they didn't even get the first bill. Years later, they get a bill for thousands of dollars, and they're being told to pay. That same 407 ETR going after people that were bankrupt. Bankrupt. All right? And you know what? The courts had to order that money back, okay? And this is happening over and over again. And the rates climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed. Thanks, Conservatives. Climbed and climbed and climbed. It just went higher and higher and higher and higher. And it became the envy of every greedy toll highway on this planet. Imagine. And so that was where we were at. Plate denials. As part of that original contract, probably the worst, most poorly written contract by a Conservative government, by any government anywhere. That contract, imagine this. They had yeah, it is, but they achieved it. That was something they got done. Worst contract ever, right? And so what did they do? They made it such that you couldn't sue them. The governments couldn't get the actual rates under control. Nothing. And governments tried to take them to court. I mean, this is the contract, ironclad for them, that was written. So all drivers, and leaving us to this very day, 71 cents a kilometre on one of the routes. Wow. 71 cents a kilometre. And on the provincially owned, by the way, they don't want to take the tolls off the provincially owned part. Right. They're collecting money on that. They don't want to tell you. It's one of those, you pull back the curtain and they're collecting money. On the publicly, provincially owned part, 33 cents. But the minister talked about New York. On their publicly owned thruway, it's something like 7 cents a kilometre. Shame. I want to hear the minister apologize for that. Apologize. He's got something. He could have done something about it. He's not willing to do anything. Why? Because he doesn't like drivers. And what this government wants to do is make the rich richer and richer and richer. And it doesn't matter. It'll never stop with these guys. Really, it just won't. So imagine this. So drivers on the 407 everywhere are feeling defeated. What's it going to take? Almost something supernatural to go on the side of the government, to be able to go back into that contract, get it and say, how do we fix this garbage that was done by the Harris government in the 90s? And then a pandemic happened. And the one fail-safe that Conservatives had the foresight to write in, probably thinking it'll never happen, right, was that if ridership got below a certain level, well, then they'd owe $1 billion to the taxpayers. And during the pandemic, when everybody was struggling, losing money, small businesses, and all those big guys like raising up profits, grocers, raising insurance companies, making money. And would this government, Speaker, would this government do anything about it? No. But behind secret closed doors, the 407 met with their, the special interest group I talked about sitting here on their shoulder and said, you know what? They said, guys, don't make us pay, please. Please. Don't. We can't afford it. We make over $1 billion a year. Don't make us lose $1 billion. Now, they weren't willing to help everyday working Ontarians, nurses, healthcare workers. But for the people running the 407, oh man, that's their base. What did they do? They said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just like when Enbridge called and said, reverse that OEB decision. What are we paying you for? Yes, sir. So, I'll tell you, the only people a Conservative government ever gets it done for is the 1%. Not even the 1% of the 1% is who they get it done for. The one chance they had, and they didn't do anything about it. What a shame. What an absolute shame. And that's why I began with this, that the minister...
Sorry to interrupt the member. Order. Stop the clock. Order. The House will come to order. The member from Niagara Falls, Government House Leader, will come to order. Start the clock. The member may resume.
Thank you. Speaker, they don't want to hear it. It's tough for them. In fact, I commiserate for them. Because at the end of the day, their backbench don't get to make decisions. Their parliamentary assistants don't get to make decisions. Their ministers don't even get to make decisions. The decisions that run this government are special interest, and the special interest of the 1%, they're the ones that direct the agenda, and their PR guy sometimes gets them to roll it back every once in a while. They hate it. You give them truth, I told you, it's like spraying holy water on them, right? They recoil, they fizzle. You can see steam coming off the government benches as I speak. So, I want to say, on behalf of all Ontario drivers, shame on this government, shame on them for not standing up for drivers, shame on them for not standing up for truckers, and shame on them for the 407 deal, the worst deal any government made in the history of this world. Thank you, Speaker.